Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. This is the Bright Spot with Taryn, and we are back to our normal Monday slot, but maybe a little bit later than normal, only because I'm recovering from a cold. So I decided to let myself sleep in a little bit later this morning just to continue focusing on my health. What we are talking about today is somewhat of a continuation from last week's message, and it's following a theme that you're going to see a little bit throughout the entire month as we gear up for a 3-day workshop that I mentioned at the end of the month. So the focus today is 5 reasons that New Year's resolutions typically fail. And the workshop that I mentioned that we're going to be doing at the end of the month is preparing for work-life balance in the new year. And so it's going to be a little bit of a focus on work-life balance in the mindset of not resolutions, but intentions and setting new intentions for the new year. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get to the end of the session. But let's just dive in right away and talk about those 5 reasons that New Year's resolutions typically fail. And of course, again, I mentioned this in last week's video that this is just that time of year, right? It's the time of year that we start moving into the new year. Everybody gets really wonderful ideas about having a fresh start and getting maybe like a fresh approach to things that we've been wanting to work on, which is all wonderful and very healthy and a great thing to be thinking about, right? Self-improvement is always a wonderful thing. But resolutions in general they've gotten a kind of a bad rap as time has gone on. I know there used to be tons and tons of people that did resolutions. Now, when you ask that question, there tends to be a lot more of a split focus. And so the reasons, there's probably even more reasons than these 5, but the 5 reasons that really came to mind for me when I was thinking through this, that New Year's resolutions typically fail is first, oftentimes when we think about New Year's resolutions, we don't always set the right mindset that is really necessary to actually follow through with those actions. So I mentioned that a little bit in last week's meeting. It was crazy to me when I was looking at some statistics. There's actually a statistic that says that 48% of people who set New Year's resolutions expect to fail in that resolution or give up that resolution by the end of January. And so it's like, well, there's that statement, and I can't remember who said it. I want to say Thomas Jefferson, but there's a quote that says, whether you think you'll succeed or think you'll fail, you're right. Right. And so our mindset has so much to do with the results that we achieve in resolutions in life. And so if we go into a resolution expecting that you're not going to make it, you're definitely not going to. And it's common, I almost think that the social dialogue that has occurred around New Year's resolutions contributes to that, right? Because so many people have struggled with New Year's resolutions. And so it becomes almost part of the norm to just not succeed with those. And so that mindset, that's probably the biggest contributing reason to why New Year's resolutions often fail. The second reason is there's a big tendency, I think, for many of us to set unrealistic goals during New Year's. So there is a lot of inspiration and excitement that comes with the New Year's. And sometimes when you're in that space of inspiration, it can be really easy to overshoot or estimate what it is that you're actually able to do, right? So we might shoot for a goal that we would never shoot for at any other time in our life, or just be kind of caught up in that excitement. And so similar to the mindset piece, right? If you set an unrealistic goal, then the first time you fail or you fall off of that goal, it's going to create this sense of discouragement, right? So if the goal itself seems really, really, really big, and you can't even, in your head, what your head is telling you is you can't even hit this first little piece of that goal, and how are you ever going to achieve the whole big goal, right? So it's about, if you are a resolutions person and this is something that you do want to do, consider, instead of setting big goals, try to set small, manageable goals, and then allow yourself the opportunity to just keep growing on those as you achieve each one, right? So it doesn't have to be that, you're trying to lose 100 pounds or 50 pounds or, whatever the case is by this time frame. It doesn't mean that you're going from working 70 hours to you're going to work 40 hours in the first week of the year, right? That might not be realistic. So maybe it's about backing off 5 hours, or maybe it's about, whatever the goal is that you're working on. Obviously, that's going to change what the step is and what that smaller milestone would be, but just consider that smaller, more achievable goal as a way to kickstart the new year, and then something that you can grow on as you continue throughout the year. The third thing is that we oftentimes hang on to negative emotions that might be associated with the goal that we're working on. And what that does is it makes resilience harder and more challenging as we work through the goal. So I'm going to stick with the weight loss piece for a second, right? Because that's a very common goal. Many of us are oftentimes trying to be healthier. That's oftentimes part of what work-life balance struggles focus around, is taking care of ourselves. And so if you're in a space of judging yourself and beating yourself up for not eating healthy or not going to the gym as much as you think you should, right? If you're beating yourself up and beating yourself down, that might even be a better way of saying it, and you're holding on to those negative emotions as you go into the new year, then the first time you miss going to the gym, you're going to beat yourself up again, right? And so you have to find space to be grateful and appreciative for yourself and to yourself for the steps that you're making, right? Like even just choosing to set a new goal is a step in the right direction. So how can you take a moment to give yourself that appreciation, but also that grace to not be perfect, and to learn and continue tweaking whatever it is that you're working on, right? So the first time that you don't go to the gym, maybe instead of beating yourself down, you take a moment to find out and think, why didn't you go to the gym that time? Do you need to adjust your schedule and when you're going to the gym? Was there something at work that happened that created additional stress and you didn't go? Did a late meeting get scheduled? So take each moment that doesn't go quite right and give yourself time and space to analyze what happened. Because it's not just you, right? Like it's not like you are the worst person in the world, which is what our brain tells ourselves sometimes. There's a legitimate reason as to why something didn't go right. So take that moment and focus on that rather than getting caught up in negative, self-berating emotions, okay? The fourth thing the fourth reason that New Year's resolutions often fail is because we haven't necessarily taken the time to understand the root of why we haven't been successful so far. So, for example, if I stick with the food piece, many times many people are emotional eaters. That's just a really good example to stick with. So if you're an emotional eater and that is contributing to why you're having a hard time losing weight, but you haven't really analyzed that or dug into that, and the stressor or whatever is creating that emotional eating trigger is still in existence, but you haven't resolved that, then it doesn't matter how determined you are to lose weight. It doesn't matter how many goals you set or how many milestones you target. You are still going to be faced with the same problem, right? You're dealing with the symptom and not the illness. And so taking that time early in before you even establish the goal is going to ultimately make you much more successful at the end of the day. And then the fifth thing that I will say is the fifth reason that New Year's resolutions often fail is because a lot of people essentially almost write off the entire rest of the year as being unavailable for change. And so what I mean by that is, let's say you start off the year and you have a very specific goal. I'm going to lose 30 pounds you know, by this day, you don't lose that 30 pounds by that day, then a lot of times people just throw their hands up and that's the end of the story, right? Like, but ultimately, the reason that you're setting a resolution is not to lose it by that specific day, right? You're ultimately setting the resolution because you want to get healthy or you want to feel more confident or you want to feel more comfortable. Whatever the reason is, that reason still exists, whether that day has passed or not, right? So again, kind of taking a longer term view of the goals that you're working on is ultimately going to help you be more successful in the long run than just throwing your hands up and saying, hey, that initial goal that I said I didn't meet, right? So um, the joys of having dogs and people walking by the window, right? So at any rate, what we're going to talk about next then is, since we just hit those 5 reasons that New Year's resolutions often fail, the question then is going to come up of what can you do, right? So maybe you are a resolutions person and you're trying to figure out how to think through this going forward, or you're not a New Year's resolutions person, but you are interested in self-improvement. And so what I'm going to offer as a solution here is not necessarily setting New Year's resolutions, but instead setting a New Year's intention. And that's what we're actually going to be talking about a lot as we go into that 3-day workshop at the end of the month. So it's good to pay attention now and see if this sounds like something that would be of interest to you. So what's the difference between an intention and a resolution? So there's really 2 big things that come up. Getting very specific, funnily enough, a New Year's resolution tends to be very, very specific. So I used the example a few moments ago of losing 30 pounds by, whatever, March 1st. You pick a date. That's a very, very specific goal with a very specific destination or a specific thing that you're trying to hit by a specific time, which there are times and places for those types of goals where that is the right way to set a goal, right? So there is a lot of power in being that specific in certain cases, but a lot of times when we think about the goals that we're setting as resolutions, they're oftentimes bigger and deeper than that, right? So it's not really truly that we actually want to lose weight. Like, yes, it is. We want to lose weight, but again, we actually really want to feel more confident, or we want to feel more comfortable in the clothes that we're wearing, or whatever the case is. We want to feel healthier or stronger. There's usually something bigger at the root of things. And so when you think about an intention is broader, and it's usually going to be focused more on that ultimate feeling that you're trying to hit, or that ultimate change that you believe you would have in your life if you hit that goal, right? So maybe instead of saying I'm going to lose 30 pounds by X date, maybe your intention is I'm going to live healthier and make healthy decisions for myself, right? That might be an example of an intention. The other main difference between a resolution and an intention, you might just pick up from what I just said, that a resolution is ultimately about the destination that you're trying to reach, and the intention is about the journey that you're trying to reach, or the journey that you will have in reaching that destination. So what does that mean? If you think about the journey, right? Any journey, you might have stops, you might have turns, you might get lost at some point, and then you might turn around and like find yourself right on the back path, or back on the right path. There are changes that occur in a journey, and a journey doesn't necessarily always go the way that you want, but if you know where you're trying to get, you ultimately still get back on path and you continue on the journey that you're trying to complete, right? And so it's something that if you embrace that idea of the journey rather than the destination, it allows a little bit more room in your mind for those changes to the path, the starts, the stops, the turns around, the getting lost and getting back on the path. Like, those are things that we all expect to be part of a journey. And so you're already setting yourself up for that acceptance that it's okay if something doesn't go right, if you fall off of a goal or you fall off of whatever it was you were intending to do. You have that intention for the entire rest of the year. And so you just pick yourself back up and you continue on that journey, right? So there's a lot more give and take associated with that, which just makes it easier to stick to and a lot more powerful to stick to because you're ultimately focusing on the result that you want, not a specific goal. So we're going to talk about that a lot more in this 3-day workshop that I'm planning at the end of the month. The invite for that is going to go up a little bit later this week now that I've got a good idea of some times to post it. And so just keep an eye out for that. Again, that workshop will be preparing for work-life balance in the new year. It'll be 3 days, an hour each day. So a little bit of actual hands-on work that we'll go through each day to help get you set up with some really strong intentions and going into the new year with a good foundation to what it is that you want to achieve. And so I'm really excited to plan that out and really excited to work with everyone on it. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. And yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Thank you.